This podcast brought to you by Hope 1032.
The Hope Book Club with Katrina Rowe and Natasha Moore, because life's just better with a book.
Welcome to the Hope Book Club with Katrina Rowe and Natasha Moore. Today we're looking at Heartburn by Nora Ephron. It's an autobiographical novel from the famous screenwriter of films like When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle. The Museum of Modern Love by Australian author Heather Rose won the Stella Prize in 2017. It explores the famous performance art piece The Artist is Present by Marina Abramovic. And I've been reading a thriller in the vein of The Girl on the Train. The Wife Between Us goes for a similar experience, but doesn't quite live up to its more famous predecessor. Plus, we'll discuss the books we've read again and again and again. But first, let's hear from Heartburn by Nora Ephron.
One thing I've never understood is how to work it so that when you're married, things keep happening to you. Things happen to you when you're single. You meet new men, you travel alone, you learn new tricks, you read trollop, you try sushi, you buy nightgowns, you shave your legs. Then you get married and the hair grows in. I love the everydayness of marriage. I love figuring out what's for dinner and where to hang the pictures and do we owe the Richardsons. But life does tend to slow to a crawl. The whole summer Mark was secretly seeing Thelma Rice while pretending to be at the dentist. I was cooking. That's what I do for a living. I write cookbooks. And while I did discover a fairly revolutionary and absolutely foolproof way to make a 4-minute egg and had gotten to the point where I simply could not make a bad vinaigrette, this was not exactly the stuff of drama. Even now, I cannot believe Mark would want to risk losing that vinaigrette. You just don't bump into vinaigrettes that good.
That's from Heartburn, an autobiographical novel by Nora Ephron, famous for co-writing movies like When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and a personal favourite of mine, You've Got Mail. The book is unashamedly based on Ephron's marriage to and divorce from Carl Bernstein, her second husband. Natasha, you have really piqued my interest in this one because I absolutely love her films. Are you a fan of her movies?
Well, the other one that she wrote, which is, I think, my second favourite movie in the world, is Julie and Julia.
Oh, I've seen that.
About
yes.
Julia Child, which I just love and I watch over and over and is hilarious. And I didn't realise that actually until I was reading this novel, and there's a line in it about how, in a world of uncertainty, at the end of the day, you know that if you add butter to flour or something, I don't know what the things are, but you know that it will get thick and that this will happen. And I was like, that line sounds familiar. And I'm like, that's from Julie and Julia. And then I realised that, oh, of course it is. She wrote
it. Excellent. And she was a food writer for a while, I think, Nora Ephron.
And so the character, because the whole thing, the edition that I've read, so this book is from the 80s, about the breakdown of her marriage to Carl Bernstein, and the preface kind of, which is from like 25 years later, is like, we all know this is a thinly disguised novel about she was 7 months pregnant when she found out that her husband was having an affair. Carl Bernstein is the Watergate guy, one of the Watergate guys.
Right,
so,
yeah.
He's famous. Nora Ephron is more famous to me.
Yeah, same.
But she kind of, even the preface is hilarious of this book where she talks about how, how thinly she disguised it. So she says, my second marriage actually ended exactly the way the one in Heartburn does, shortly after I discovered that my husband was having an affair with an unbelievably tall person. In the book, I thinly disguised myself by making myself considerably more composed than I was at the time, and I thinly disguised my ex-husband by giving him a beard that belonged to one of my friends. The unbelievably tall person he had the affair with remained unbelievably tall. It's my experience as a novelist that some things lose everything if they are disguised, even thinly, and that therefore it's best to just leave them alone. So there are a lot of details. So she makes herself a food writer in the novel.
Right.
She's not actually.
A food
Maybe
writer.
she's done it. Clearly the book has recipes in it and stuff.
She must have at least been a foodie, I think, to be so in love with Julia Child and everything as well.
That's right.
So I find it really interesting that someone who later made their name in romantic comedies, wrote a novel about a failed love story. So what do you see what's it really about this book?
Well, it's literally about what it says it's about. It's
splitting up.
Yeah, it's about her finding out her husband's having this affair and, and also about their different friendships and about Washington political and social life and all these things. But what the book is to me really is it's just, and it's hard to grasp how this can be, but it's one of the funniest books I've ever read in my life.
I get the sense it's kind of her laughing at herself.
Well, I think, and one of the things she says in this preface is that she's like, what I wanted to do was to turn this hideously tragic time in my life into comedy. And that's the great kind of achievement of the novel, that she manages to make this horrible situation very, very funny. And even while you're reading it, you're like, oh, I'm not sure how she's managing that, but she is. Like, it's very charming and funny and short, and every turn of phrase almost made me laugh.
Well, I love how she writes dialogue. Sorry to keep returning to the movies, but I love how she writes dialogue. I'm such a fan of her screenwriting.
Yeah.
I love how she writes dialogue in her films. Did you enjoy her writing in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She's so clever. And the dialogue in the books is very clever as well. And just even, so like I loved the picture of Washington's social life and of social politics, of all these people who are, I mean, it's all like, it's a little bit sordid, like all the people who are having affairs with each other, all the politicians and the secretaries and the undersecretaries of the Middle East. And so it just kind of weaves in the politics and the fame and the luncheons and the dinner parties and the balls and the elections and everything, and gives you this horrible but very entertaining picture of what all these kind of slightly neurotic people are like. And, if it's, I guess it's the late 70s and like everyone's in therapy and like learning to be psychoanalytic about themselves.
Yeah.
And
I'd love to learn more about her attitude to love, because if you sort of just say, okay, Ephron was married 3 times, you could easily dismiss her, or her advice or her sense of what love is about. But her third marriage actually lasted more than 20 years until her death. So she must have kind of learned something about love. What's her whole attitude to love and relationships in the book?
I guess in the book it's swinging wildly all over the place. So it sounds like her first marriage was just a bit of a disaster.
I think that one lasted about 10 years. This second one was about 4, I think.
Yeah, and the second one, because she like really loved this guy, and they actually broke up before they got married because she found out he was unfaithful. And then he kind of came after her and was like, no, worst mistake of my life. Like, I love you, I'll love you forever. And she was like, she let herself be persuaded, and was like, well, clearly what he learned from that is that
he can get away with it.
Yeah. And so, she kind of still loved him and kind of wanted to stay married to him, but was just like, I can't.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from reading the novel about it, like, you kind of do get it.
I guess I raised it because you could hear about a woman, she was married 3 times, and you could assume that then she's a train wreck.
Yeah.
But I think that her films show that she's someone who has very much thought about love and what real love looks like.
Well, she's had a lot of experience,
yeah,
I guess. And I mean, is not everybody a train wreck? And,
yes, that's right.
And, what is the rom-com if it's not it's the prelude? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You don't have marriages in rom-coms.
No.
Like, that's the whole, is that how the genre ran its course? Is that it was kind of like, okay, well, this is all very meet cute and lovely, but hey, what about people's real lives where they get married and then they have to deal with like figuring out what that
stuff
actually
like
looks like.
Like arguing about which movie to watch on a Friday night. Or as she says, and you've got Mel, we would never argue about that. No, we wouldn't.
I have not seen that movie, I'm afraid. Sorry,
Natasha. Yeah. It's all about someone closing their beloved bookstore.
Well, I care about the books, but it's just that the email thing will be so
twee, I know,
quaint.
But that's just adorable.
Okay.
Closing
if
bookshops.
It's adorable.
It's divine. Anyway, so I'm a big fan of her films, as you know. Would people who enjoy her films also enjoy this book?
I can't imagine anyone not enjoying this book.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Like, you don't need to like her films to... So, as in, I would assume... Not that I've kind of seen Sleepless in Seattle, and I did see When Harry Met Sally.
But When Harry Met Sally, come on.
Yeah,
that
sure. But, like, I'm not a massive fan of those films, but this book is
You're just too young. You're too young.
Funny.
You needed to see those movies in your teen years.
Okay. That is
then they
not a thing
really
that
speak to you.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. So it's awesome, basically.
It's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Read it.
Good. Our next book is Museum of Modern Love by Heather Rose. It's a novel that reimagines Marina Abramovic's famous performance art piece, The Artist is Present, at MoMA in New York. She was the artist who sat in the atrium and invited people to look into her eyes. That famous performance becomes the context for another story, exploring questions about the nature of art, life, and love. It won the Stella Prize in 2017. Natasha has been reading it. What do you think, Natasha?
I think it is a very accomplished novel, and that focusing it around Marina Abramovic and this particular, these 3 months in New York in 2010, these real 3 months, this thing that happened and that was unexpectedly powerful and made this huge impact at the time. I think that was a very good narrative device. I liked it. I think everyone in my book club liked it.
Okay.
I'm not sure I all out loved it.
Okay. So were you already interested in the art of Marina, how do you say her last name, Natasha? Abramovic?
I think it's Abramovic.
Okay.
I looked this up at some point.
Or were you more interested in the Australian author behind it?
This was one that I didn't pick.
Okay.
So it was picked, by my book club. And I was like, okay, cool. I didn't know anything about Marina Abramovic except for having a vague memory of The Artist is Present, because I remembered a video that had been doing the rounds on social media where it was like, oh, okay, this artist, she's been sitting, in this chair for all day for, I think the exhibition, the performance went for 75 days. She sat in this chair and, whoever sat opposite her, she'd just sit still and look into their eyes, and they stay for as long as they like and leave whenever they want. The one that did the rounds was about how this man she was in a relationship with for many years and she hadn't seen in a long time, I think, or that was kind of the story, came and sat down opposite her. And so she, she kind of sits with her head down and her eyes closed until someone sits down, and then she looks up. And so it was this kind of, mostly she's just kind of looking at the person. But with him, it was this kind of, she starts crying and he cries and they kind of reach across the table and hold hands. And, it's this lovely moment of human connection. So that was the story that I knew. And I kind of thought the novel was going to be about that, about that moment. And so actually for the whole novel, I was waiting for that
and
to
didn't come.
Well, it turns out I hadn't realised that it actually happened the first day of the exhibition. So it gets mentioned later in the book, but it's as already having happened, and it's not at all the point, which I think also was sort of clever, that it made it a bit more unexpected and not kind of cliched. And this is the thing that I think I didn't love about the book, is that technically it's told by essentially the muse, right? So it's told by a kind of, it's like an angel kind of thing, right? It's like every artist has their muse, this kind of almost guardian spirit who's looking after them. And this muse is, Marina's muse, but also Archie's, and also, looks after all these other people. So that sort of worked, but I was a bit actually, I really feel like you could have taken us inside all these people's heads without doing the muse thing. I found it a little bit much and a little bit unnecessary.
Okay, so how central is the artwork, her exhibition, to how the characters are responding to what's happening in their lives?
I guess it's kind of a catalyst for them, all in, quite different ways, because, sometimes, so these people tend to, and this, I guess, is an accurate depiction of what happened, is that lots of people came back day after day after day. And, they were drawn to this thing, which I don't think anyone expected it to be as successful as it was. That, it's really just a person sitting there and people would kind of, sit in the chair and look back at them. But that actually, if you think about it, when do you ever sit and look into someone's eyes for a long time? And, especially this a stranger, and this woman who's kind of lived very intensely. So it kind of is this intense experience for lots of people who sit with her, and particularly for the characters whose heads we get into. Some of them sit with her and some of them don't, but they're all kind of drawn to this idea. And I guess it's kind of a human connection thing. Often when people do sit with her, it becomes this site where, people kind of are confronted with stuff inside them that's raw and that they wouldn't otherwise be willing to face or acknowledge or deal with. But that kind of connection with another human that's very public but also very private has this quite dramatic effect on them.
Wow. I know that the author is studying fine art. So do you think it's a bit of a comment on the importance of art in our everyday lives and to help us sort of understand what's happening?
It has a lot to say about art. And I thought that was all really interesting, partly because the artist is present is the only thing that I really knew about Marina Abramovic, but the book goes into quite a bit of her life and her previous performance art, which, her stuff has been called terms like endurance art and body art. And this one, the artist is present, seems very tame compared to the things that she did before. Like, she's done some very shocking, extreme
we had to study
things.
Performance art at uni, and there was people hanging themselves off hooks, meat hooks. And, it can get quite extreme.
Oh, yeah. Like, there were ones that she did where she kind of put all these objects, like dozens of objects on a table. Some of them are things like honey or flowers, and some of them are things like a whip or a gun with a bullet.
Yes, and she let them do anything to her. And she's like, you can do
whatever you want to me for 6 hours. Like, the public could,
there was a loaded
touch
gun.
her, hit her, push her. And there's all these debates about, like, is this art? What is art? But her kind of trying to push to extreme situations to be like, okay, what is it really to be human, and what are we capable of? What are we really like when you strip back the layers? And so I think, the artist is present seems very tame by comparison. But even then, like, the physicality of it, like, and none of this had occurred to me, that sitting in a chair very still for like 7 hours a day, she can't move. She doesn't get up and go to the bathroom. She is incredibly stressful on the body.
Oh,
It's bad for your
thinking
organs.
Straight away the pain that she must feel when she gets up.
And she's like that, she's like, she can endure extreme levels of pain and like kind of push through it. And, so it seems like a very simple, still thing, but the amount of kind of energy and discipline that she has to bring to that to make it work, and then to have this connection with humans who are sitting opposite her.
It's very disciplined, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's, there's a conversation that a couple of unnamed characters have at one point, like, overheard, where one of them is like, do you think she'll make it? She said she'll do this for, I think it's 75 days. And the other one's like, oh, she'll definitely make it. But, even if it kills her, I think that wouldn't perturb her, she's willing to take this to,
Extreme
whatever
levels.
it takes.
Wow.
Understanding how, at least according to the novelist, what's going on in Marina's head was really cool. And also, there was a lot about her relationship with this guy, Ule, who is the one who came and sat opposite her on the first day. It kind of goes back to think about their relationship, and they did art together, a lot of this crazy performance art together. And it kind of traces that back and some of the psychology of that. And, when they decided to break up, they did this kind of performance art thing where they walked from opposite ends of the Great Wall of China towards each other to meet in the middle and say goodbye. And it was filmed and stuff. And so it was, all of that was kind of really interesting and quite,
Makes you feel very normal and boring, doesn't it?
I know, right? This is what a great love looks like.
Wow.
And they didn't make it. Didn't work out.
Gosh, full on. Not sure if it's a book that I will be reading, Natasha, but I'd like to learn all that by osmosis without necessarily having to read the book. However, some books are worth reading more than once, right? There are some books that we love so much that we read them over and over throughout the course of our lives. Maybe you first read it as a teenager, you pick it up again in your 20s, suddenly you hit 40 and like, I need that book, I need it. What's the book you've read over and over and over again?
Oh, well, the one that springs to mind is Harry Potter, right? I've read the Harry Potter books several times, or even Narnia, those kind of classic series. C.S. Lewis wrote about how the reader who would never read something twice, that person is getting the wrong thing from a book.
Okay.
That actually, the person who's like, oh, I've read that, that's a reason never to have to read it again, is like, no, you don't use up a book and then you're done.
No, there's always more you can learn and experience. And I know some people that will never watch a movie twice because there's always more movies to see.
And I know what happened in it. And you're like, well, that's not the point.
That's not the point. And I'm like, I would much rather watch a really good movie 7 times than waste my time watching a bad movie. Because there's always more you can get out of a good movie.
So I think the one that I actually come back to every 2 or 3 years, I'm like, oh, I haven't read this in a while. I need a shot of this. Is a book that no one's ever heard of called Stepping Heavenward.
What is that?
It's a novel. It's written like in the middle of the 19th century, and by a woman called Elizabeth Prentice, who is like a minister's wife, and it's written as the diary of this girl from when she's 16 until she's kind of in her 40s. And it's not like a great work of literature or anything, but I think just in terms of what it says about like her life and her faith. So she's, like when she's 16, she's a bit like, she's like in a Christian family. It's like the 19th century. And her mum's this like wonderful, godly woman who just loves prayer and who everyone adores because she's so gracious and just so loving towards everyone. And whereas she's a very kind of willful, a little bit vain, quite tempestuous
so this
teenager.
Is like the Beth and the Joe of Little Women.
You've got Little Women on the brain.
The angelic Beth and the tempestuous Joe, right?
But see, the mother is like, actually, I used to be just like you. And so it's kind of her figuring out, do I really believe this? And then sort of the kind of ups and downs that she goes through in her life. And, it's the middle of the 19th century. People die a lot. There's a lot of illness. There's a lot of like people dying at home and caring for, them at home. And so just this kind of intensity of life, but also just the boringness of everyday existence and figuring out how to be a person of faith in both of those things. So I think, like when I read it for the first time, I'd been a Christian for like at least a decade. But I kind of say that this book taught me to love Jesus.
Okay.
Which is a different thing to just being like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but like actually this is about relationship and personal affection for Jesus. And so yes, that is the book that I go back to every few years where I'm like, oh, I need to kind of reorient to be a bit more like Katie.
Wow,
that's her name.
Nice.
How about you? What do you go back to again and again?
I'm sure if my husband was going to answer this question, he'd say Pride and Prejudice.
And he'd be right.
Because I have read that a lot. But the one I thought that I actually probably have read more consistently is Anne of Green Gables, because I read it as a teenager and I've reread it as an adult, and then I've read it to 2 of my kids separately and shared it, and I just love that they've loved it as well. I just relate to so much in Anne of Green Gables. Like, I know it's kind of obvious because I'm a redhead, freckled-faced, grew up in the small town and whatever. But
it is for you.
It's me. It's my life story.
Except you're not an orphan.
I'm not an orphan, thankfully. Yes, although I did go off to boarding school, so I kind of felt like being an orphan. Sure. It's timeless and it's so delightful, and it's because it's all based around a beautiful character and you want her to have a win. She's had a really, really tough life. Marilla doesn't want her. She wants to send her back because she's not a boy. And I just love seeing Anne get her happy ending. So,
do you have strong feelings about the various adaptations, the film and
I've refused to watch the TV series.
Oh, really?
Refused to. Absolutely. Because
that's strong.
Well, because I talked to people who loved the book and they were very unhappy with aspects of the TV series. And I thought, why do it to myself? I love the film. It's perfect. I mean, the original one. Yeah. Why do I need to watch the new one? No, they just ruined it.
Okay. Yeah, it's very decisive.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, well, my read for this episode is a sort of modern thriller, really. It's called The Wife Between Us by Greer, Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanan. Now, I have to say, Natasha, when I see 2 author names, alarm bells just go off.
Really?
I do. I kind of think, oh, yeah, this is just a money-grabbing venture, to write a bestseller, and you just kind of churn it out.
So, as in, you mean one person had the idea and the other person ghostwrote it? Like, what do you think
No,
when
I
it's
just
two authors?
think it's like they're kind of going,
You think two authors can't write together well?
no. I mean, no, not really. I just have a prejudice against it. Makes it seem to me a business proposition rather than a work of passion.
Oh.
But I know that's not
Interesting.
necessarily the case. But it is a prejudice I have. I think because James Patterson has all those books, James Patterson
right.
with, and he comes up with the idea and someone else churns them out.
Does he? Okay,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So I read this because I liked The Girl on the Train. Mm-hmm. This book kind of has a similar vibe, I guess, if you were going to compare it. Okay, I stuck with this book till the end. It's good. It's fairly good. But the thing that really annoyed me about this is that the authors trick you. So what I mean is, normally when there's a twist, we go along with the character who's deceived and then the character learns something and then that's kind of the reveal that we have. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it's not the character who's deceived, it's us. The author deliberately tricks us by the way they write the book. So if this had been like an unreliable narrator, I probably wouldn't have minded it. But it was the fact that they set it up deliberately to make you think something that wasn't the case.
So do you mean that, like, there are no clues? Like, you couldn't possibly have guessed that?
I mean, it's very deceptive the way that this book is structured. Deliberately, they're making you think something
Okay.
and then revealing it. But it's not a journey we're going on with the character. It's not unreliable narrator. The person who's tricking us is the author.
But
So
maybe,
you felt like you can't
that sounds
trust
really
anything.
interesting. Like, maybe it's an innovation, and the first time you ever read an unreliable narrator, you feel similarly cheated. But then next time, it's kind of like, oh,
I just felt that the author had lost my trust because I'm like, I know now that you're just trying to trick me. I mean, every time you read a murder mystery, you know they're trying to trick you,
Yeah.
right? But you're going along the journey with the character being deceived. So you're kind of just being led along with them, whereas in this, it's like a direct author tricking reader.
why don't we have a spoiler alert moment and you tell us what it is? But
Really? You
I
want
don't
to
know.
do
Well,
that?
People can just skip 30 seconds ahead if they don't want to know.
All right, we need to count down. All right, 3, 2, 1. So they've set the book up as if it is two characters. One is spying on the other, but it turns out it's the same person. One is past her and one is current her.
Oh.
Yeah, so
That
they've
sounds really
set
interesting.
up one with Vanessa and one is called Nellie. And then at the very end of the first, you realise that Nellie is Vanessa before this stuff happened to her.
Yeah. That sounds cool. I kind of want to read it now. And
Now we've ruined the twist for everyone.
And I hated Girl on the Train, so
No way. I love Girl on the Train.
Oh, it was so boring.
The audiobook was so good.
Well, I didn't listen to audiobooks, so maybe, we had fundamentally different experiences.
No. Because I loved it so much that I did the book and the audiobook.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is good. This is good that we have different tastes.
That's right.
Because then we can kind of represent different...
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry I just spoiled that book for everyone. It's all right. You can come back now. You're safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Why the title? The Wife Between Us?
The
What does
Wife
it mean?
Between Us. Okay. So the setup is that the main character, Vanessa, is a jealous ex-wife. Her husband has moved on with a younger, newer model of her, basically, and that she is jealous and desperately wants him back. That's the sort of setup. Like, even on the blurb of the book, it says, you will think you know all the players, the jealous ex-wife, the perfect new younger model, whatever. You will be wrong. So basically, you read the book knowing it's not what you think, but then, of course, throughout the book, there's a couple of twists as to what she really wants, what she's really trying to do, and what the new wife is actually up to as well.
Right. You know that, we didn't realise this at the time, but totally without meaning to, all of these books we've talked about today are about marriage.
Really?
Yeah,
Heartburn.
Heartburn is,
Yeah.
but actually Museum of Modern Love is sort of about, Jane's lost her husband and Archie, there's something like his wife is not around and there's kind of some stuff going on in their marriage and, now
Okay, and this
one
is about a really unhealthy marriage.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So, yeah, they're probably all about, fairly bad marriages, really.
Well, about,
Learn learning from it.
That's right.
Relationships.
How does it work?
Well, there you go, Natasha. We've just done the marriage edition.
Oh, great. That was unintentional.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this special marriage edition of the Hope Book Club. We've reviewed Heartburn by Nora Ephron, The Museum of Modern Love by Heather Rose, and The Wife Between Us by Greer, Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanan. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Email us, bookclub@hopemedia.com.au. And thanks again for listening to the Hope Book Club, because life's just better with a book.
Thanks for listening. Start your day with life words. Subscribe to Hope 1032's free daily email devotional at hope1032.com.au.